Story 1. Iceland is gorgeous, well connected to Europe and America, and extremely difficult to emigrate to. Switzerland is also on the short list. Story 2. If money is no object, I would probably choose Helsinki. I would also consider Oslo, Frankfurt, or Toronto. These are places I have visited. Story 3. I live in Australia, which is very expensive, and there are many advantages to other countries. However, it's amazing, so I might consider Vietnam because the street food is really good, but only for half the year, as I would miss it here. Story 4. As a Canadian, I don't think I need to go anywhere, as long as the neighbors calm down a little. Otherwise, perhaps Norway and I can address their aggressive, expansionist neighbor. Story 5. One of the Nordic countries likely ranks consistently among the happiest in the world. Additionally, it is incredibly beautiful there. Story 6. Northern Scandinavia and Finland are far away from everything, separated from cities and crowds. Just a good internet connection in the middle of a forest or mountains would suffice. Alternatively, Japan offers a similar escape from urban life. Story 7. Vietnam. I miss the people, the warm days, and the sounds. I don't know why, but I especially miss the sound of older Vietnamese ladies calling out to people. It became my comfort noise. Story 8. Canada may not be as appealing as some European countries, but it is still within driving distance of my family. Story 9. Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and perhaps France are interesting places to watch events unfold, although I can enjoy similar experiences on television. Story 10. Denmark. If the Americans and the Danes are going to fight over Greenland, I would rather be on the right side. Story 11. Every country would decline significantly without immigration requirements. There is a reason that desirable countries have the strictest immigration standards. Story 12. Croatia. I understand that life is challenging there right now with inflation being out of control, but I love everything about Croatia. The culture, the outdoors, the people, the food, the humor, and the quirkiness. I visit 2 or 3 times a year and could happily live there. Story 13. I would likely stay where I am. If I had to migrate, it would probably be between New Zealand and the Scandinavian countries. I would also consider Japan, but only if I could magically learn the language. Aside from that, I would probably prefer the other options. Additionally, I want to mention Ireland. It would be in the running as well, though I believe it ultimately comes down to New Zealand versus one of the Scandinavian countries. Story 14. I love Canada, but if I had to go somewhere else, it would probably be Norway, Finland, or Sweden. I need a place with winters and a good outdoor scene. Story 15. I fell in love with the Highlands of Scotland when I visited. It was beautiful and the people I met were amazing. The place felt like home. I would love to find a cottage in the Highlands to escape and forget the world. Story 16. Australia, but luckily I am already here. If I had to choose a different country, I would say New Zealand. Story 17. I would probably stay in the Netherlands or, at most, move to Belgium or the United Kingdom. Quite like it here. Story 18. Anywhere my tax dollars benefit me directly through efficient public transit, universal health care, and access to higher education. Virtually anywhere that has those services. Story 19. I see many people talking about Scandinavia. While I feel very privileged to live here, the impact of the long winter cannot be overstated. It is difficult to explain how horrible it feels knowing that you will not see sunlight for the next 3 months. You go to work in the dark and return in the dark. It may seem strange to write this, but you truly realize how important the sun is for the human psyche. Story 20. I moved to Norway from Africa. I have not faced any violence. Jokes aside, for anyone considering emigration, keep in mind that the country you move to and its people do not owe you anything. It is up to you to put in the effort to integrate, contribute, and thrive. Learning the language will help significantly. Story 21. Norway or Sweden for sure. They outperform the United States in nearly every metric. Additionally, I love black metal. Story 22. My personal list includes Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, New Zealand, and Ireland. Story 23. I feel fascinated by Italy. However, considering religion, I believe Turkey would be a good option. Story 24. Japan. In this hypothetical scenario, I can continue working remotely as a software engineer. However, I would be a software engineer in Okinawa, wearing a kimono and clogs all day, while enjoying as much sashimi and green tea as I can. Story 25. As a Canadian, I often think about Australia or New Zealand. The language and culture are quite similar, but the weather and scenery in New Zealand would be much nicer. I also love traveling to Asia and frequently visit since I have family in Japan, which makes that much more affordable. The housing crisis is similar there, so that wouldn't be a new experience for me. I know I'm fortunate to be Canadian, but with the economic challenges, housing crisis, poor weather, and the issues with the United States, I can't help but dream about living somewhere comparable yet more beautiful. Story 26. Japan or China? Just get me out of the Western world and into modern-day cities. It also helps that I speak a little of both languages. Story 27. I have a family of 4. If it were for all of us, I would likely go to New Zealand or Australia. If it were just me, I would choose Lithuania, Georgia, or Finland, probably Finland. Story 28. I know people on Reddit dislike France, but I love it and would be on the next plane out if I had the opportunity. Story 29. Thailand is warm, enjoyable, and affordable. Cannabis is legal and the locals are friendly. Story 30. I have lived and worked around the world, but you could not drag me back out of Scotland now. Story 31. USA has more hope in research and development, along with greater innovation for startups, compared to India. Story 32. Belize or another tropical country, with tropical diseases treated by modern medicine. I am convinced that tropical weather is the best for us. Story 33. If I were younger and working a remote job, I would move to a country with nationalized medicine and affordable housing, such as Italy or Japan. Story 34. Which one has the least amount of government oversight and will not come after you if you decide to disappear into the woods and grow something? Story 35. Antarctica, perhaps. Aside from the governments jointly preventing access, there is not much politics present. Story 36. I am content where I am, although the gray-brown winter months do have a heavy strain on my mental health. The same country, only green year-round, Suriname it is for me, I guess. Story 37. Ireland. A couple of years ago, I got bored and started learning Irish. Aside from the fact that I would like to speak Irish every day, it is an at-risk language with too few speakers, and I feel slightly obligated to move to Ireland and raise Irish-speaking children. I am not sure I want to deal with the housing crisis, though. Story 38. I don't think I would immigrate. I've had the good fortune to be born in Canada, where I've been able to live my life in accordance with my values and desires pretty freely as a woman. The Canadian passport is the envy of much of the world, and I am very grateful to have it. I could see myself living abroad temporarily, but I don't see myself ever actually immigrating to another country. I would never give up my Canadian citizenship. Story 39. Canada's politics are relatively suited to my taste, more so than in most countries. English is one of the main languages, the wildlife is amazing, and if I ever teach in K-12, I can find schools without uniforms. Story 40. Canada is the most LGBTQ-friendly country in the world. While it is becoming more phobic in the United States, I am trying to figure out how to relocate there. However, if I had a lot of money and a universal translator, I would choose Japan. I have wanted to travel there for years, and I was supposed to go in 2020. I know enough Japanese to get by. It may not be sustainable long-term, but I would love to visit one day. Story 41. I would likely stay home in the United States regardless. However, I would consider Malaysia, Scotland, Ireland, Argentina, Canada, New Zealand, or Australia if it were feasible. It would be nice to get away from certain political movements, but I would rather stay here and be part of the solution, to be honest. Story 42. I run an animal rescue and have always worked with dangerous animals. I also have a strong affection for marsupials, particularly in Australia. Story 43. I live in Canada, so there is no need to immigrate. However, if we were to sink into the ocean, I might consider moving to Norway, Sweden, or Denmark. Story 44. I would move to Germany, probably join the army, and find a home in the Munich area. I hear they need soldiers, and I was an American one at one point. For citizenship, I would do that. I would really love to live with a view of the Alps. Story 45. As a Brit, soon to be 50 years old, I reflect on America. It's a country where, for the most part, you can buy a plot of land and build whatever you want within reason and without too much hassle. I can't even dig a 10 by 15-foot pond without consulting a local council, paying for a surveyor to measure environmental impact, and presenting a good case for a reasonable requirement. If I want to collect rainwater to save on my water bills? No, illegal. You are not allowed to collect over a certain amount of rainwater. If I want solar panels to save on my electricity? No, illegal. You need planning permission and a reasonable cause, such as saving on infrastructure and costs, not to mention the savings to myself. As much as people criticize the current administration and the previous one, trust me, this has been an ongoing issue since I was a kid. Despite everything, it's still one of the freest nations for an individual. Story 46. Netherlands, Sweden, or Denmark, assuming I could learn the language without too much difficulty. Dutch would probably be the easiest. Story 47. I would just stay in the United States. I have been fortunate to travel around the world. Overall, the United States offers more for the average person. Story 48. That's the trick, isn't it? If it's not regulated, then it loses its uniqueness. By creating a world with open borders, cultures may disappear. Story 49. I picked Sierra Leone, moving from America. I came here for the excellent economy and low crime rate. Just kidding, of course. I'm a mission worker and I came here to serve. Fun fact. My legal residence card is a folded sheet of cardstock and handwritten. Story 50. Deutschland or Norway? Canada would be cool too. I have a few friends in the Philippines and one in Mexico. Australia was the first place I wanted to move to as a kid, and I still do. Story 51. My own country, Australia, and perhaps Rarotonga, Finland, Denmark, or Sweden. Maybe Canada, the United Kingdom, and Ireland. These are the only countries where I feel women have a chance to live an almost equal life and might be suitable for me. Story 52. Norway. I have friends there who are confident that my English skills won't pose much of a language barrier as I work on learning the local dialect of Norwegian. The winters will be an adjustment, but I have friends to help me with clothing, as they say. There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. Story 53. Norway or the Netherlands, but I would probably stay in Canada. From what I understand, there is mandatory military service in Norway for both men and women. Please let me know if I am incorrect. Is there anyone from Norway here? Story 54. Since I am already a European Union citizen, I can live in any European Union or Schengen country without limitations. If we are going outside the Schengen area, I would choose Japan or New Zealand. Story 55. Norway sounds wonderful. I would love to visit, although I am not certain since I have never had the opportunity to go. Story 56. Maybe the Netherlands. I have been fortunate enough to travel there several times for work for extended periods, and it is a beautiful country. Story 57. Canada is my current choice, but if I had more time, I would explore the economies and statistics of different countries, as I don't feel I know enough about them. Story 58. I have traveled quite a bit, but the one country that felt like it could be a new home was Ireland. While sitting at the bar talking with friendly strangers, I often felt as though I wasn't far from my home in the United States. People were generally discussing the same shows, movies, and the major difference was sports. Many of the individuals I met followed American sports. What I loved about the places I visited in Ireland was that I could wander around on foot and always felt welcomed. People were curious about me rather than judgmental. To provide context, I traveled there during Donald Trump's first term. The United States wasn't faring well internationally, yet people were still eager to hear my thoughts. Ireland also has a wealth of history that you can't find in the United States. History that is over 200 years old, which you can walk up to and appreciate. I remember a bar in Galway that was built around a church that was nearly 900 years old. They had great music. I just felt so comfortable there. Story 59. I will stay in Russia. If it were just a visit and not immigration, I would likely explore the canyons in the United States or the wilderness in Australia. Story 60. Scotland, specifically the Hebrides, offers quiet, sparsely populated areas with endless white sand beaches and a short journey to the mainland when needed. I can envision moving there even without a job lined up, but I have too many commitments keeping me where I am. Story 61. Japan is a culture of precision, restraint, and quiet power, where even silence has structure and mastery is a way of life. I would go there to sharpen my mind, routine, and presence. There is no excess, only depth. Story 62. I am moving to Costa Rica in 2 years and investing in a house that meets the criteria to permanently live there, if they will still have me. Story 63. I am Norwegian, and it is obvious that world affairs are going to overwhelm us with immigrants. Just look at this thread. You can have this dark, 2 to 3 months without snow, polar bear and mosquito-infested environment to yourselves while I sit in an Italian ghost town in my underwear, sipping wine and eating olives from my own tree. Story 64. I live in a rural coastal town in the south of South Africa. Antarctica is our only neighbor. I am glad that we are not mentioned in these comments, as I prefer the isolation and tranquility. Story 65. Based on your comments. 1. New Zealand. 2. Switzerland. 3. Netherlands. 4. Norway. 5. Sweden. 6. Denmark. 7. Finland. Scotland. 9. Canada. Story 66. I would stay in America because I have a feeling many people with whom I disagree politically would move elsewhere. I believe America would begin to shift more toward what I consider an ideal society. Story 67. Stay here in the United States. I feel fortunate that I wasn't born in a country where people risk their lives to leave due to corruption and a lack of care for their citizens. Story 68. Once upon a time in Vienna, Austria, now in New Zealand or Oslo, Norway. If I had money, I could probably move to Oslo. I would like to live in Bergen or Stavanger. 2. Story 69. I haven't traveled outside of the United States, so I can only rely on what others say and what I have seen in the media. New Zealand looks the best to me, but I am reading some negative posts here. I would have chosen Australia until I learned about the various non-human inhabitants there. The spiders look horrifying, for one. Story 70. As an American living in Minnesota, I would like to move to Texas or Florida. My wife is hesitant about the move. I have family in the South, and it looks wonderful. I would never want to leave the United States. My grandfather moved from Poland after World War II, and it doesn't seem too bad there now either. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.